What we're going to be doing now is transitioning to our next guest speaker from the class of 2006, Brent Schoeb. I'm not going to do as much of an intro because I know that's part of Brent's plan and his deck. But I would just say that, Brent is a great and very involved alum. He hosted Revenue Generation Project again this year, continues to be there for us. So thanks for being with us tonight, Brent. Without further ado, the Zoom is yours.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jesse Golden is talking to Woody. I can confirm. They might be doing a power hour, just to let you know. But hey, thanks for the intro. Doc, I'm sorry I didn't wear a tie. I feel really bad right now. I am wearing pants, so I feel like that's an upgrade. I am also in my garage, so if you can't see me that well, I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old in the house, so I've resorted to my garage the last 2 months. The good news is that my beer fridge and my TV are within reaching distance. The bad news, you might not be able to see me that well because of the lighting, but if not, just envision a dude with very long blonde hair, and you got the visual. So with that, just like Jesse, took a bit of a hot route, knowing that any slides you put together even 24 hours before could be very insensitive or really go out of style with the current news cycle we have here. So I wanted to share my journey, similar to Jesse, and how Ohio has been a huge help to that, along with a couple of the big initiatives that we've been working through here as well. So grew up in the middle of cornfields in small town, southern Minnesota. From there, ended up in undergrad at St. Cloud State, where I worked for the Northwoods League, St. Cloud Riverbats. Met the owner, Joel Sutherland, who's an Ohio grad at the time, introduced me to the program. He paid me graciously $1.75 an hour, but I did have free Arby's for lunch every single day. And at $1.75 an hour, you just figure out a way to stomach Arby's for three straight summers of lunches, which is awesome. From there, went to Ohio University, thanks to Joel. And while at the program, did my internship during the summer with the Washington Nationals, courtesy of another alum, Mike Fisher. It was their inaugural season coming back from Canada. After Ohio, Jim Kaler introduced me to alums Andy Delich and Mike Redlick with the Memphis Grizzlies. Bumped up with Eric Sudol and sold sponsorships for a 20-win NBA team. So cut our teeth, both of us there in Memphis. From there, followed Redlick and Delich out to the San Francisco 49ers for stop number 1. Jumped over for a cup of coffee and followed Red over to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Indy 500 for a couple of years. And then had the chance to go back and oversee the corporate partnership team with the Niners about 6 years ago prior to building Levi Stadium. From there, fortunate enough to jump into the Chief Revenue Officer role that I'm in now. But not only has all my superiors at each of these stops helped me, but class of 2006 and a majority of the other alumni have really helped me get to where I am. So no chance, probably still stuck in the cornfields of Minnesota without the help of the Ohio program. So my current crew that we're working with right now, so between Dustin, Kevin, Bob, Catherine, then TBD. So we really oversee all Niners and Levi Stadium revenue, from tickets and suites to corporate partnerships, broadcast, special events, and public events. This crew and I have been tackling COVID together. I work from home crew just for a little fun. I can pop that up there as well. So those are my two, I'm pretty sure they're animals at this point in time, being stuck inside for over 2 months. But this crew here, really what we set out to do. So obviously, like any other team, we're selling tickets, suites, sponsorships, etc. But as we're heading into Levi Stadium, a lot of teams out there are a team, and they're also a sports and entertainment company, which is what we tried to set out to do as well. But with that, we really wanted to come up with a unique selling proposition as we entered Levi Stadium. Those are my neighbor's dogs, by the way, so I apologize for that. Holy shit, they're really loud. Anyway, so what we were looking for is a legacy brand and an innovative mentality is what we stumbled across for our selling proposition for ticket suites and partnerships. And as part of that, when you say legacy brand for a sports team, you think of several different teams, hopefully the Niners, but also Yankees, Cowboys, Celtics, Lakers, etc. And then when you think of innovative mentality, the majority of teams that people bring up are teams that open a new venue. So our goal here was not just to open up a new venue and be innovative, but since we're moving literally in the heart of Silicon Valley, it was really a rite of passage for us to move next to the Googles of the world, the Intels of the world, et cetera, to make sure that we stay cutting edge. And we did that really for two reasons. One, we obviously wanted to diversify our ownership's investments. And then secondly, we thought it could help grow our core local revenue streams on the Niners side as well. So I'll hit on a couple of these that we rolled out in the first 5 years. Some of them we rolled out when we first opened the stadium 5 years ago, and some of them just recently. Elevate. So when you look at Elevate, it's a consultancy arm that started just shy of 2 years ago. We partnered with Harris Blitzer, who own the 76ers and Devils, along with Ticketmaster Live Nation and Oakview Group. Big project that Elevate's working on right now is the opening of NHL Seattle, along with a couple of MLS teams, including David Beckham's group down in Miami. 49ers Fit, so it's a gym concept that we opened with 24-Hour Fitness founder Mark Mastroff. We opened one location last year, looking to open a few more in the coming years as well. Our EDU program, so we have a fully functional interactive classroom that we bring about 70,000 kids through every single year. As part of that, we have accredited teachers in the program as well. Enterprises, so counter to Elevate, which is the consultancy arm. Enterprises is our investment arm. One of the investments is a couple of logos down here in blue and gold is with Leeds, the soccer club in the UK. Bay Area Host Committee, so we jumped into this role as well, where we were the first NFL team to take on host committee duties for the College Football National Championship game in 2019. We've kept that committee alive. We'll dive into a little more detail on the next slide. Horizon Summit, it's a conference that's set up for business strategy and analytics folks that we host every year. We're going on year number 3. Cal High Sports, this is a good tie-in. So U.S. Bank's our banking partner. We were able to tie them in as presenting partner to this program. We bought it outright. So Cal High Sports is the #1 high school program in the entire U.S. It's got 7 figures worth of followers and has a weekly show highlighting Bay Area high school sports throughout the entire year. Wellstrong's a PT physical therapy shop. We have a license deal with. They have 3 locations and they're growing. Venue Next. This was incubated as we were moving into our new home. So it's an app company. They created the Niners and Levi's Stadium app. They have several other team apps as well. We can't note them by name, but the largest family parks in the world use them for mobile ordering. But really, they're starting to transition into a mobile ordering company as well, which is great for the current news cycle we're in right now. We like to get our partners integrated in the innovative spirit as well. So with SAP last year, we launched the Executive Huddle with their technology. Essentially, on game days, we typically, like every other team, would survey folks, get an idea what went well, what didn't go well. 2 days later, we'd get the results and make decisions for the next game. We said, hey, how do we challenge this system and really get results in real time? So we've got APIs built into a former suite with about 12 different screens, most of them interactive. We have Ticketmaster plugged in, our parking vendor plugged in, concessionaire, social listening, et cetera. And we essentially compare it to last games, game over game. And we can make decisions in real time on how to improve the fan experience and make more cash ultimately. And then our special events team. So we host about 100 private events, a lot of those being the technology companies that are surrounding us as well. So that's really what we've been up to the last 5 years beyond our traditional tickets, suites, and sponsorship business to make sure we're expanding our business for ownership. As we look forward on the next slide, we're trying to figure out how do we continue to push the norm here. So I mentioned the Bay Area Host Committee. We're continuing that, and we're putting in a bid for the World Cup 2026. We're one of the finalists at this point in time. We're also putting in another bid for an upcoming Super Bowl as well. one of our recent partnerships with Foxconn. They're the manufacturers of the Apple iPhone. We are the first to test 8K video production in our facility in the world. So we're trying to figure out how do we make our facility an entire 8K venue. One interesting advantage there is that we can look at replays with a lot clearer definition to hopefully help our team and our head coach make the right call when to throw the challenge flag. The next one in the bottom left here, so this one is a beast and has taken the majority of our time. So you probably know Atlanta with the Falcons and Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They rolled out fan-friendly pricing. We wanted to take it a step further. A lot of teams in the industry have talked about how do we include food and beverage with every single ticket. So about 90% of our building are season ticket members. We're going to take on the task of essentially providing all of them an all-inclusive venue. You can imagine the logistics that go behind that are pretty intense. We got to amplify our capacity. Having construction shut down in California for 2 months is going to make this very challenging. But really, we're hoping that we can shed some light to the industry, both good and probably a lot of bads now, because a lot of what we wanted to do from a facility upgrade standpoint might not happen. Is just really show the industry the way in regards to setting up an all-inclusive experience that can include your ticket, potentially your parking in the future, and then also F&B as well. On the right with the mock-ups, so literally directly across the street from us, we're working with a related group that just finished off Hudson Yards on a 300-acre development. It's one of the largest developments in the country. Right now, it's about a 5 to 10-year project baked out in phases. So this will really help us in regards to these bids for World Cup, Super Bowl, et cetera. It's going to be mixed-use, boutique hotels, bars, restaurants, high-end condos, et cetera. And then right around the corner, it's about half built right now. Topgolf is going to build one of their biggest facilities in the U.S. as well. So for those of you that have been to Levi's Stadium, we're really right in the middle of a commercial park with Cisco, Intel, Google, et cetera. Now we're trying to bring some entertainment life to this entire district also. So with that, thought this would be the most relevant to share beyond just the traditional revenue streams that a team and stadium look at. Happy to take on questions as well, but really wanted to thank the program for being part of this today. And like I said in the beginning, no chance I'm in this seat without the help of the Bobcat Sports App program.
Brent, that was an awesome run through. Really appreciate the look behind the curtain that is the 49ers. And I guess, again, I'll get us started with one, and then I think Christian's got a couple queued up here. But a very sophisticated portfolio that you're building. We're starting to see this from the most innovative in sports. As much as it pains me to admit it, I think Fenway Sports Group was the first one to start building out this platform. Certainly, you've got a lot of different representations there. We hear about a model like this likely coming up in LA with their new building and the mixed use. Is there one particular part of the portfolio that excites you more? How do you balance your time across those? So kind of two questions in there.
Yeah, it's a good question. Really I'd say to answer the second question first. So this came down from our ownership group and then my boss, our president, Al. And really the biggest thing that we found out is that making sure when we're interviewing people that we know or that they know what they're getting into. It's not just a traditional NFL team, and you've got a lot of other duties that you need to balance out. I'd say probably the piece that's most exciting, twofold. One, the Bay Area Host Committee, just because similar to Jesse's world, to be tied into some of the biggest events in the world is exciting, like World Cup and Super Bowl. But Elevate is really interesting, obviously, just because they're only 18 months fresh at this point in time. But to have the likes of Al and Scott O'Neill and Jared Smith over at Ticketmaster Live Nation and the Lewicki brothers, bringing their expertise to an essential startup and getting a little peek behind the curtain on what that looks like is pretty neat, because the knowledge base of those 5 individuals is pretty impressive when you go to another team and try to pick up a job.
Great. Christian's going to slide in and Carry
So,
on.
Brent, we got some questions from the chat. The first one comes from Alex Batania. He wants to know what your favorite non-49ers event has been during your time at the new stadium.
You know what? It's a pretty easy one, but a little bit of a cop out. We, for all the staff that worked on building the new stadium, we had an open house just for that staff, and only our exec team knew that we were bringing John Legend to the field, and there were only probably a couple hundred people in total. So literally everyone just surrounded his piano. We went black tie event. And it was just one of those really cool events to be able to get the keys to something you've been working on for years and years.
Awesome. Our next one comes from Sean O'Hara, class of 2010. He wants to know, how do you continue to push yourself to learn new areas of business to make yourself more rounded? Examples, executive huddle, ticketing, since you were a sponsorship person.
It's a good question. I'd say the biggest thing for us is that we're fortunate based on where our stadium sits. Like I mentioned, right in the heart of Silicon Valley between Palo Alto and downtown San Jose. So we've got a ton of technology partners. So, we said, hey, we're not the technology experts. So as we partner with the SAPs, the Intels, the Ciscos, the Citrixes of the world, let's lean on them and get a really good understanding on how they can help our fan experience. And we're happy to be guinea pigs with these companies, especially since they're big brands. So we actually do a lot of learning from our partners, and it becomes a very reciprocal process when we're looking to onboard these folks.
Awesome, thank you. One of the questions from our class of 2020 is, we want to know if you could talk about your experience on the team's trip to the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, that was actually in my initial slides when I first started looking into this. But just maybe a really cool story. Start to finish. So, as we were taking this magical run, by the way, if you look back at my career, I had yet to have a winning season start to finish until last year, believe it or not. I missed the exact 3-year window the Niners went to the NFC Championship game when I went to IMS. I missed the 10-year playoffs in a row when I left Memphis. So I've really nailed timing working for really shitty teams. I think my winning percentage was around 25% until last year. So this is all new to me, but we were fully prepped to go to the Super Bowl because you have to plan, but you only can plan so much. So I was sitting in Al's office after we beat Green Bay and we're heading to the Super Bowl, and it was just one of those really neat moments that we got a call from the CEO of Levi's, who usually takes off after the game right away, but he's down in our Michael Mina pub. So we met him down there and actually ran into John Lynch on the way through. So we hung out with John Lynch, Chip Berg, the CEO of Levi's, and Al and I, for a few too many drinks just to celebrate. And then I forgot that I had all these email queued up to all of our founding partner CEOs to invite them to the Super Bowl. So Al and I jumped back to the office, fired off about, probably 50 emails or so. And no joke, within the first 30 minutes, and these are, Intel CEO, Cisco CEO, Comcast CEO, you name it. It was a top level partner tier as a Fortune 5s for us. They got back to us in the first 30 minutes. About 75% of them, East Coast time was about 10 p.m. at the time, and they all said yes. So I had kind of an oh shit moment, and I grabbed 4 of our staff members and myself and said, all right, we got to lock ourselves in the office for the next 10 days. I'll take care of you guys, some bonuses, etc. Because the list that we had and the caliber that we had in regards to CEOs was a lot higher decision maker than we expected. So we also put 5 years of really bad football on the field. So we didn't give our partners much to celebrate. So this was really our opportunity to turn the corner. And I asked Al that night when he had a few drinks in us, what's our budget? And he jokingly said, just to erase the last 5 years of their memory. So we said, okay, it's a big budget. So, we were going with, we had yachts pulled to avoid traffic from all the parties to Hard Rock Stadium to our hotel. We had the best hotel, one of the best hotels in South Beach, completely on hold. We had all the Super Bowl parties on hold, you name it. I can say that it was an exhausting 4 days in Miami, but one of the most memorable times of my life. To say the least. My wife, for the first time, realized what I do for a living because she was entertaining with us. But even though the results on the field didn't go our way, we had that entire group in a private jet on the way home to the Bay Area. We just had unbelievable memories, and there's absolutely nothing that can replace winning, which none of us can control when it comes to partner satisfaction. So it was a heck of a trip. We baked out. We probably spent a couple $1,000,000 on the budget. I came back to Al and our owner, and we ended up with about 36 times ROI in that event in 2 months following Super Bowl.
That's awesome. Thank you. Our next question comes from Adam Yasik, who's in the class of 2021 here on campus. He wants to know, what do you see as some of the biggest changes in professional stadiums related to customer experience over the next 5 to 10 years?
COVID related or not COVID related?
It doesn't specify, but you can kind of answer how you see fit.
Yeah, I think on the COVID front, what we've learned on our end is don't be the first to speak, because you'll get attacked by every politician imaginable. So I think we're all learning this together, quite honestly, and we're all going to come up with the best practice coming from the medical experts in all of our state governments and federal government and local government, et cetera. Moving forward, I think there was a trend already before COVID. How do we take care of those folks that can't get to our stadium? As Jesse said, I still think that sports, church, and maybe a couple of other moments are really the only lasting moments that people still want to gather in significant settings to this point in time. But I think with the upstart fan and the younger generation, we've talked about, even with Intel, how do we do a virtual reality season ticket that we can sell and make an experience for fans that can't get here. So I think, venues are going to look at, less seats in the bowl. I was talking to our architect the other day, and they're working on a stadium that literally only has seats for a baseball team behind home plate, and everything else are social platforms. So, I think the venues are going to change in regards to less physical seats and more roaming areas. I think we got to make sure that the in-stadium experience is top notch. That's why we're working with the Foxcons of the world on 8K. Jesse mentioned 5G, which would be important as well. But how do you take care of those fans virtually and make some cash on it as well? Awesome.
Another question we had from the chat was, what is your number one aha learning moment in sports?
I think it would probably, being the Minnesotan I am, I wasn't always as aggressive as I probably am now. So when I was working for the Memphis Grizzlies, we came off our worst season in the history of the franchise. We had 22 or 24 wins that year. We were the worst team in the NBA. We all went out a little hard, Eric and I and company, that night, Sudol that is. And the next morning I was trying to figure out who do I possibly call after this train wreck of a season. And I was working with a local Chevrolet dealership in Memphis, and he gave me a hard no really fast about 6 months ago. So I said, I'll give him a call. So I put another pitch in front of him that next day, and he was going back and forth and telling me all the reasons why this didn't make sense. And he said, hey, you know what? I'll do this deal, but instead of whatever, like $150K, I'm going to spend $50K with you. And since he's a Chevy dealer, I said, hey, you're asking for a Chevrolet at a Cobalt price. And he started cracking up and signed the deal right on the spot. So I think you just don't get what you ask for sometimes is what I learned from that lesson. And I'll definitely remember that one for a long time.
Awesome. Another question from a member of our 2021 class, Justin Brodsky. He wants to know, how will an all-inclusive offering to all season ticket members force your team to innovate the experience for existing premium customers, and who may already be receiving similar benefits?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So currently only our season ticket members receive the benefit, which is about 90% of our bowl, as I mentioned. It is not included in our suite holder benefit to date. Now, the majority of our suites are on 10-year terms, so we have 3 more years left on those terms. We are talking to help renew, because we have a big cliff in year 11 of our building. To help renew those suites, we'll probably look at some type of an all-inclusive offering as well.
Awesome. Another one we have is from Angela Adams, another class of 2021. She wants to know how your transition to working from home has been like, and how has your team adapted to working from home?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the one thing that we have going for us here in the Bay Area is that a lot of companies that we work with, we're already working from home and we're remote. I think on the sales and service side specifically, I really don't want to see our folks in the office that much, because it probably means they're not selling or servicing or activating our accounts. So for us, it's actually been okay. There's obviously that first week here, and we were hit pretty hard right after Seattle was a major challenge because you're just making sure that everyone's okay. But since then, I think we've been okay in regards to our engagement, but no doubt we want to get back to the office in some capacity because it's hard to keep any type of a semblance of culture together without seeing each other, in face-to-face situations.
Jason Golden would like to know, how do you balance when is the right time to reach out via cold call and not be too aggressive too early during this COVID-19 situation?
So that's the number one question that we tackled a couple of weeks ago. So for us, we initially started out just by talking to our current folks and current partners and suite holders and ticket holders, and then only folks that we already had corresponding relationship with earlier before this hit. Now I'd say we turn, and again, we were one of the first to jump into this, so we're one of the first hopefully to get out. About a month after that, I think buyers were starting to get antsy because they have jobs to do as well to buy hospitality and partnerships. So, we started reaching out to other cold prospects, I'd call them, but we'd always lead with finding out what they're doing to help combat COVID-19 on their end. So if we saw that a prospective company was buying masks for the hospital, we'd lead with that, followed by, hey, we're doing something on our end as well. Great to see we're taking care of the community together. And then really from there, we just say, if you're open to a conversation, here's why we think it makes sense. We'd love to chat now, but knowing, now's a challenging time, let us know coming out of this if you're open to a conversation.
Well, in the Q&A, this last one kind of going back in time a little bit, our class wants to know what your transition from grad school to your first professional role was like, and what advice do you have for us as we reach that transition point?
Yeah, I think, no joke, the most challenging 6 months of my career was leaving Ohio and heading to the Grizzlies, and obviously have the support of Andy Dulwich and Mike Redlick and Eric Sudol and others, but I didn't have that much sales experience, quite honestly, coming out of the program. So, Red at the time was, and Eric will tell you the same thing, he came pretty hard and made you figure it out on your own, which at the time wanted to challenge him to a certain perspective, but it was the best thing that could happen. So, Eric and I leaned on each other a lot. Our classmates leaned on each other a lot, the AJ Pools of the world, et cetera. So I think it's really important when you jump into a position, find people that have the same or similar jobs, especially in our program, and stay in touch with them.
Awesome. I lied to you, Brent. We got one more question, if you're okay with that. The first one comes again from Sean O'Hara. He wants to know what a key thing you learned about transitioning from sales to management, a key learning moments to your sales story, or what's your management philosophy that gets the most out of your team?
Yeah, transitioning from sales to management, so I'm sure everyone's heard it. Not all the time is your best seller a good manager. We've all seen it. So I think the biggest thing you need to understand as you head into management, we just promoted a VP of ticket sales and service, Dustin, who was on that slide. And the biggest thing I told him that was probably the biggest surprise to me is if you're a seller, you know when the good and bad news is coming for the most part. But when you're overseeing a team, probably 80 to 85% of the time when someone walks into your office, it's not good news or it's a problem you need to solve. So you got to change your mindset when you hear the footsteps coming outside your office. You know that you're going to have to help someone with a problem or a challenge. So if you're not up for that task, then you're probably not up for management. That's the biggest thing on that front. In terms of, I think, was philosophy the second question?
It was, what's your management philosophy that gets the most out of your team?
Yeah, so for that piece, I like to empower, just hire good people, number one, and let them do their jobs and stay out of their way. But the big thing that I like is a weekly summary that I make sure that all of our VPs and head of departments tie in annual goals into comp plans, into recognition, and into weekly KPIs as well. So there's so many times I've seen where a weekly KPI doesn't tie into a goal or what you're motivating your staff and how you're paying your staff. So for me, all that has to be very linear to make sure that you're sending the correct message down to each executive. So for example, on the partnership sales side, Kevin, who runs that team, I just tell him every week, I really only want to know two things. One, how many meetings has the team set this week, and 2, how many proposals were in the marketplace this week. Outside of that, I try to stay out of his way unless he asks for help. And based on meetings set and proposals in the marketplace, that's also what we pay people and recognize people by. So I think it's important to make sure that those are all interconnected.
Yeah. And one final one, with the potential for your sponsors to lose in-venue value of their sponsorship with no fans in the stands, what are the conversations you're having to combat sponsors maybe requesting refunds and price breaks? And that comes from Katie McGowan.
Hey, we're playing football with all fans. The Commissioner Goodell just told everybody, right? No, in all seriousness, that's a very challenging scenario for a team, because if you're playing with no fans, it impacts your ticket revenue, your suite revenue, and your partnership revenue significantly, right? So without giving away the full details, I've been heavily involved in NFL league conversations to change one critical policy that I think could save a significant amount of dollars at this point in time. But, outside of some policy changes at the league level, you're really just hoping to save small percentages on the dollar at this point in time. Obviously, each of our partners are in unique situations regarding, whether you're in the airline business or healthcare business versus consumer product business. We'll take each one of those conversations as they come, and we've had several of those already.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Brent. We'll bring Matt back up on the screen.
Sliding right in here. Great job, Brent. Thanks a million. 2 super keynote speakers to keep us rolling here this evening.